All right, I think we'll start with the session. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining this session. And yeah, my name is Ashutosh, and I'll be walking you through some of the changes which have happened in the way PMP looks at a project manager. So there are some very important and fundamental changes which have happened over the years. Though the core of project management as a profession remains the same, but there have been some subtle changes which have happened. And yes, I mean, many of you who are already PMP certified will be aware about these changes. You would have read about them. You would have seen those changes in other webinars or somewhere. I'm sure you would have seen those changes, but yeah, but I thought that I will take this as an opportunity to walk you through what are those inherent changes which have come up, right? And how one should cope ahead with those changes, right? So that is the intent of this webinar. There's already one more webinar I had done on a similar line earlier. And this was around a couple of months back. There's a link for that on the YouTube channel. And both these webinars have to be used in conjunction. So when you're preparing for PMP certification program, make sure that you go through both these videos as a part of your learning process, right? Because both are very, very important. And one of the fundamental changes they have made in PMP is that no longer they call it processes. Now, remember people who had done PMP earlier, right? There used to be those 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. Now that vocabulary has entirely shifted. Not that we don't execute projects in that manner. Definitely today also we execute projects through initiating, planning, and then we have executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. But what has happened is now even our customers, even our clients, the focus is not on delivery, the focus is on value. What is the value you are giving to me at the end of the day, right? So that is the focus wherein PMI has completely shifted the gears, or that is where PMI has moved itself, right? So the first and foremost thing or the change what has happened is it is moving from a process-based delivery to what we call as a value-based delivery. So you will see the word value coming up multiple times. So in the PMP guide, PMBOK guide, sorry, you will see the word value appearing it at multiple locations at multiple times is what you will see. So that is one of the fundamental changes what has been brought out. Okay. And they have a vehicle for value delivery. There's something called as a system for value delivery. So that word value keeps on repeating again and again. That's change number one, what we have. So that's, and it's a very important change, as I said, right? I mean, it's something which is which ensures that there's a marked shift from a traditional, what we used to call it as the traditional way of project management into what we now call it as a value-driven approach or a value-based delivery, as they call it now. Okay, so that's change number one, what we have. And likewise, you will see there are many such changes. As we move along, we'll see that there are many such changes which have been encountered in the PMP world. Okay, so moving ahead, yeah, the core of the project management has not really changed, but what we now have is the PMBOK guide itself is no longer structured on like chapters like scope management, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communication, risk, procurement. So if you remember the old PMBOK guide, it used to have a chapter on scope management. It used to have a chapter on schedule management, then cost management, etc. Now the entire, again, the way this book has been designed. So first of all, it has become much more leaner. It is not like that 700-pager book which used to exist and which one had to cram, and one could have a high probability of clearing the exam if you could cram the PMP PMBOK guide. Now it is more about conceptual. They will throw a concept and then they will expect you to explore that concept through other mechanisms. So gone are the days where everything is prescriptive. It is more now experiential. The learning itself has shifted from a rote-based learning to more of an experiential based learning. What is, and this is also what I had told in my earlier video. When I had shot that video, I had talked about it that yes, the way the focus entirely has shifted into a project management principles. So in fact, if you look at the PMBOK guide now, there are two major sections. One is project management principles, wherein there are 12 principles which are listed there. And then you have project performance domains, where you will see 8 project performance domains which are there. So that is one shift or one change which has come out. So does it mean that we don't do scope management in project? No, that is not correct. We still do. Does it mean that we do not do quality management or risk management? That is not correct. But as I said, the purpose, the fundamental shift has moved from a project based to a value delivery vehicle, what is there. All right. So that's another important change, or that's another important piece what is there. So the last video which I had shot and which is now on YouTube was on the project management principles. So there I had walked you through the 12 project management principles, and I had given examples of each one of those 12 principles. So if interested, do watch that video, because that will give you an idea or a glimpse into what are those 12 project management. So now today's video will be focusing on the performance domain. So if you look at it today, I'll be talking about the 8 performance domains. So if you look at the PMBOK guide, there's already a video which I have taken, a session which I have taken on this part, the project management principles. This I've already talked about it in my earlier video, and what is the system for value delivery. Today, I will be focusing on the 8 project performance domains. Again, the idea is to give you a glimpse. We obviously will not be going into the details of each of this. For that, you will have to go in for a official PMP certification program. If you want to, if you're preparing for PMP certification, obviously you'll have to go for that official 35-hour certification program. But I'll just give you a glimpse into what are those 8 project management performance domains and how do they play out. Right. So that is the objective of today's session, what is there. And again, this session will also get recorded. This session will also move onto the YouTube channel is what we would be doing. All right. So on that note, let us start with this session. And as you can see, the 8 project performance domain as stakeholder management, team management, development approach and life cycle, planning, then project work, then delivery management, measurement and uncertainty. So those are the 8 project performance domains what we have, and we'll try to understand those 8 project performance domains and how do they impact us. All right, so let us move ahead. Yeah, so this is what we had already covered. As I said, the 12 project management principles is something what we have already covered as a part of the last video which I had done. Okay, so let us understand now the 8 project performance domains, and here are those project performance domains. Now, what does one think about this performance domain, or when the word performance domain comes to your mind, what exactly is the thing which comes to my mind? What exactly is the work I am supposed to do as a project manager, as a team member? What are those activities I need to do in order to make sure that the value delivery is created at the end of the day? As I said, PMI talks a lot about value delivery nowadays. It is no longer about the output. It is about the outcomes what we are working upon. So what is that value delivery we are going to do? And what are the activities needed in order to ensure that there's a value delivery? So performance domain is where the project manager is actually polished, right? His or her skills get actually polished when he or she goes through these 8 project performance domain. It's like your appraisal. This is like a proof whether you are a good project manager or a mediocre project manager. How well you perform across these 8 areas is a measure of how good or bad a project manager is. Okay, so let's start one by one. The first one is stakeholder. And when we talk about stakeholder, it is all about how, as a project manager, I keep engaged with my stakeholders, right? And we all know what is the definition of a stakeholder: an individual, entity, or an organization which is impacted by the success or failure of a project. Many people make a mistake. They think only people like you and me are stakeholders, or only, let's say, client, customer, or let's say the delivery people are the stakeholders. No. stakeholder can also be an non-living entity like an NGO, non-government organization. A stakeholder can also be another company, right? Another organization which is there. So any individual entity or an organization which is impacted by the outcome of your project, what we call as a stakeholder. And one of the important elements of stakeholder engagement is how effectively you keep your stakeholders engaged through the journey of the project. Now, there are different tools which are available for that. Like a couple of tools I have shown there. This is not a complete list again. So tell you that this is a partial list of the tools which you can use for keeping your stakeholders engaged. And one of the very popular one is the power interest grid. So you have power and the interest which a stakeholder has. This is an analysis which we are supposed to do when my project is started, right? Like who's this, who's B, etc. I plot them on the relevant quadrant, right? Interest is on the x-axis, power is on the y-axis. And accordingly, based on the position of these stakeholders, I have a management strategy in place as to how I should be handling these stakeholders in my project. A variant of this tool is your stakeholder cube. So stakeholder cube has got a third dimension to it. So it's no longer about power and interest. There's power, interest, and the attitude of the stakeholder, right? Whether the attitude of the stakeholder is a positive attitude or whether it's a negative attitude, right? That also matters a lot, right? No point in having a powerful stakeholder only to realize that the attitude of the stakeholder is not at all a positive attitude, right? You will end up always having a challenge with those kind of stakeholders, right? So it is also very important to understand what kind of an attitude is the stakeholder having and what are their expectations, what are their needs, what are their expectations from the project. That's also something very, very important for us to understand. So this is the power interest grid and the stakeholder cube. So obviously, as a project manager, you should be knowing about where exactly your stakeholders are fitted, what is the power and the interest they wield, and if you are using the stakeholder cube, what kind of a influence do they wield? What kind of stakeholders are they? Are they positive? Are they negative? And what kind of stakeholders we have with us is what this stakeholder performance domain is going to showcase here. All right, let's move ahead further and let us further try to understand this as we go along. The second one is the team performance domain, right? The second project performance domain is related to team. And yes, again, as a project manager, you expect to create a self-organized cross-functional team, as we say, right? I mean, gone are the days where a command and control leadership style we could operate with that kind of a style. Today, there is a shift in the way leadership works, right? Even your project leadership operates. It has moved from a traditional hierarchical command and control style to a more, I would say, humane-based approach, which is a servant leadership, imbibing the traits of emotional intelligence, psychological safety, all those traits embedded into that leadership style, what is there. So servant leadership, again, not a new concept per se, but from a project management point of view, definitely a new concept. Does it work? Does it not work? Again, I have a couple of videos on that on my channel. Those are very much detailed videos about servant leadership, what is the importance of those. And feel free to watch those videos on my channel, which are there. But yes, to put it in a perspective, a servant leader is a leader who's the coach, a mentor, and a guide to the team. Someone who provides that cushion or that safety net to the team, as you can see, and someone who motivates the team and challenges the team. Also, today's leaders need to be strong, emotionally intelligent leaders, right? Gone are the days when on the basis of an IQ, I could actually get selected or be promoted as a project manager. Today, you need to display that empathy factor. Today, you need to display that strong EQ or emotional intelligence, as they say, which is essentially that 4-quadrant model of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and social skills, which are there, right? And leaders today are evaluated on that skills. How much of the skills do they have on the emotional intelligence perspective? Are they giving that psychological safety net to their team members or not? So that's something which is the mantra for today's emotionally intelligent leader. And of course, we have another tool called as stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. So here there is an overlap between the stakeholder performance domain and the team performance domain. And here what we see is that we are classifying the stakeholders on the basis of what is their current level of stakeholders, what is the desired level, and how do we bridge that gap. How do we move about and bridge that gap between the two? That is what we have it as the team performance domain, what is there, right? So that's the team element, what we call it. All right. Moving ahead, the third is the development approach and life cycle. Now, this is a very interesting performance domain because PMI, what they did, one major change they introduced was a focus or a prominence on agile way of working. So prior to maybe 4-5 years back, PMI was heavily focused on the traditional project management ways of working. The classic PDCA cycle, what we see there, right? We plan something, we do something, we check on it, and then we act on it, right? That circular motion, what is there, the Deming's classic Deming cycle. But now, even from an exam point of view, you will see there are almost 50% of questions which are on the agile way of working, right? So it has a clear-cut criteria defined that as a project manager, you have to be a part of that decision-making process when you're taking a call, whether this project should be done in a traditional way of working or whether it should be done in an agile or an adaptive way of working, or for that matter, even in an hybrid approach, wherein it will be a mix and match of both these approaches, which is there. And then there are several tools available for that. One of them being the Stacy's complexity chart or the Stacy's complexity matrix. So those are the different types of tools which are available, which will capture this development approach and the life cycle. And as a project manager, you have to be a part of that decision-making process. You cannot delegate this. This comes entirely under your accountability to take that decision, and that a firm decision that, yes, I will do this project in a traditional way only. Not just because everyone is doing a project in Agile doesn't mean that this project is a candidate for Agile. There could be several other reasons why this project is bound to fail in an Agile way of working. So we will be doing it in a normal traditional way, or vice versa. You have to build a strong business case as to why you have to execute a particular project in an agile way of working. So that's a call. That's a call what you as a project manager will be involved in, and you will have to justify it with various parameters, right? So there could be a Stacy's complexity chart, there could be an evaluation sheet. You do a scoring model based on which where exactly the project tends towards. Is it a traditional way or an agile way? So that is a call, or that is a additional data points you might require to perform this kind of an analysis. All right, let us move ahead. Planning. Yeah, so planning is one of the key elements in the job of a project manager, right? And we always say, right, well begun is half done, as the very famous saying says, right? So when we talk about the planning domain, here the expectation obviously is that as a project manager, I will be involved in creating a project management plan. And this project management plan will be a very, very comprehensive document. It will consist of my scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communication, risk, procurement. All these plans will be integrated or embedded, and all these plans will be finally consolidated into the main project management plan. One of the important concepts in project management is related to baselining the plan. What is baselining? Getting an approval, making sure that there's a buy-in or there's a green signal for us to go ahead and execute this work, right? As per the plan, right? And many people confuse again planning with scheduling. No, scheduling is one part of planning. There are multiple elements in planning, as you can see, right? You have planning related to, you have multiple aspects of planning. What are there? It's scope, schedule, cost, quality, and scheduling just happens to be one of those elements what is there. Right. So that's one more important thing we need to understand from a planning processes. And then, of course, the baselines, right? Baseline, scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline, that really hasn't changed. Right. And obviously, when we talk about planning, we need to understand, we need to carry out estimation of work, how much of efforts would be required, how much of cost would be needed for this project. the accuracy to which we have to do this estimation, the precision required, then scheduling techniques like identifying the critical path of the network diagram, crashing the project, fast tracking some of the activities, and the overall budget. Right. So if you see on each of the slides, I have written a big statement which PMBOK talks about, right? What is each of the performance domain? In a one line, they have described what that domain is all about, and then the details emerge. Just a disclaimer, this is not a complete slide which covers the entire planning or which covers the previous, like in the previous slide, we had what was related to the development approach and life cycle, right, or stakeholder. The slides are just to give you a kind of a taste of what lies in front of you, right? It's like a sample testing, what I'm giving you here. But to study each of these performance domain, probably you will require 2.5 hours, each of this. So that's the level of rigor you will have to put in, or that's the level of commitment you will have to enter into this when you're studying for the PMP certification exam. All right, let us further move ahead and let us go to the next one. The fifth one is the actual project work, what you do. And this is very closely related with the execution. And as we know, right, when we start executing the projects, when the rubber actually hits the road, that is where we encounter a lot of challenges. Be it challenges related to the fact that my estimation went completely off track, or my scheduling was completely haywire, or I figured out that there are some new changes which have to be incorporated into my plan. So this project work is that place where reality sinks, right? Or where reality bites to us as a project manager. When we actually start executing the work, we realize that these are some of the challenges we are facing. And one of the important challenges, or as a project manager, what we need to handle is make sure that your constraints are handled very well. What are constraints? Anything which impedes your project movement, or anything which comes in the way of your project execution is a constraint. And there can be multiple constraints in your project, like scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, risk, procurement. These are what we call as the constraints in your project. And as a project manager, remember one thing, these constraints compete with each other, which means one change you incorporate. Let's say you increase the scope of work, your schedule will be impacted, or you reduce the budget, your quality will suffer. So that's why it is very important for we as a project manager to keep that constraint wheel in a state of an equilibrium state, right? That constraint wheel needs to be always be in that zone of equilibrium, what is there. And then of course we have the change management process. Any changes to the original scope of the project will go through a formal change management process, which is there. So a change request being raised, to an impact analysis being performed, all this data being presented to a change control board or a change advisory board, then they taking a call whether to accept the change, reject the change, or put the change on hold, and the change log being updated, and subsequently the project plan getting updated, reflecting the decision on the change request. So this is the entire journey of your change management process, what we have as a part of your project work. So this is number 5, what is there. As I said, there are total 8 project performance domains which are there, which one has to go through it in their journey towards understanding what the new PMBOK is all about. All right, let us go to the 6th one. The 6th one is related to delivery. How do I ensure that I do a delivery of my work? So project work is fine, you're executing the project. But here, the proof of the pudding lies in eating, right? How am I going to deliver this work to my customer? Have I constructed a proper WBS? Am I doing what the customer wants? Or am I doing something like a gold plating where I ended up doing something extra which the customer never asked for, never demanded? What is the cost of quality I'm incurring in my project? And as we know, cost of quality is cost of conformance plus cost of non-conformance, as we can see, right? The money spent during the project to avoid failure, and money spent after the project to basically handle the failure. So cost of conformance on the left-hand side, prevention cost and appraisal cost, and cost of non-conformance is the internal failure cost and the external failure cost. So as a project manager, my performance is dependent on, first of all, have I delivered what the customer wanted? Is my customer happy with my deliverables, right? And secondly, is it a quality product? Is it a product which I can rest my laurels on and say that, yes, this is a masterpiece or a quality product what I have developed, right? So that is the quality element what is there, right? So those are the two crucial elements. And as you can see, the description also says that it addresses activities and functions associated with delivering the scope and quality that the project was undertaken to achieve. So this is all about the quality norms and the quality standards what we have, right? And one of the important element is a WBS, a work breakdown structure, which helps us in constructing a scope baseline. A scope baseline is kind of an agreement document that this is what we will be doing, or this is what we'll be delivering, or this is what we will not be delivering. So that is what is a scope baseline, which is nothing but your project scope statement plus WBS dictionary what is there. So that's your scope baseline and your cost of quality, or the quality related money or the funding what is required for your project from a quality perspective. All right. So two more pending, two more project performance domains pending here. And let us also try to get a hold of those two project performance domains also, which are there. So the seventh one, what we have is measurement, right? As we all know, right? No point in saying that my project is the best project, or my project is doing great, or my project is not doing great, until and unless you have a measurement mechanism in place. Right. So yes, I mean, the earlier avatar of PMBOK did have the earned value management, right? We did have this cost variance, schedule variance, budget at completion, ETC, EAC. I mean, people who would have cleared PMP exam know these formulas, or they would have learned these formulas at that point in time. But now it is more than this. It is also about information radiators. How do we display the information radiators? What goes into an information radiators? What does not go into an information radiator, right? Where exactly these information radiators should be positioned at a workplace. Of course, that's more a pre-COVID kind of a thing. But today in a COVID world where people are scattered across the globe, how to digitally display these information radiators, right? So all that information radiator is the measurement, how you're performing, because at one single glance, you will come to know how the project's health is, right? Whether the project's health is good, is it red, amber, green, the very famous RAG indicator as we call it. So if you'll come to know in one single go, what is a project health indicator here, the RAG indicator, what we call it. So this is a measurement domain, what is there. And again, these are not the only two ways in which metrics can be projected. As we know, if you're working in an agile way, we do have charts like a burn down chart, a burn up chart, a velocity chart, etc., which to a certain extent will give you an indication about the health and also of the measurement related to the business outcomes, right? The business outcome matrix which are there, right? So this is what comes in as a part of your measurement domain, what is there, right? How do we measure the work, what we are doing here? All right. The last one is uncertainty. Now, this is a very tricky one. Because this is something which is not in the hands of a project manager, right? I mean, we all know that uncertainty is something which is an induced, I would say, factor into our project life, right? And when we talk about uncertainty, two words come to my mind, right? Known, unknown, and unknown, unknown. And I think we know that there is something called as a contingency reserve, which is known, unknown. So you know that things might go wrong and you have funds for them. But what about a situation like COVID-19 in the year 2020? Today it is the known unknown, but that time it was unknown unknown, which was there, right? So that is unknown unknown. You have to also plan for unknown unknown. Things might not go as per the plan, or things might get deviated, right? Whatever plans you make, things might not go as per that plan what you had, right? And you have to be ready with that, right? So that is what we have it as a part of the known unknown and unknown unknown, what is there. Okay, so known unknown and unknown unknown, what we have as a part of this, right? So that is what we have it as a part of this exercise, what is there, right? How to navigate complexity, how do we go about and move ahead and navigate the unknown parameters what are there as a part of it, right? So this is what we see, right? This is what we say, that uncertainty domains, right? And yes, how do we handle risks? Risk, as we know, is an uncertain event or a condition. which could impact the project. Incidentally, there's also a concept of a positive risk, right? Something which is going to benefit the project in a positive manner. So that's the concept of a positive risk or a positive element, what we call from a risk response option perspective, what we have. So how do we handle that risk? How do we make sure that the risk is something which does not go unattended? It is handled in a proper way, and then there's a response to that risk which is available. So it talks about handling uncertainty and how, as a project manager, you should be skilled or you should be adept at handling basically the risks which are there, right? So that is what we call it as the risk management techniques which are there. Okay, so these are I would say these are some of the things. These are some of the eight important performance domains, what we call it. And the objective of this short session was to just walk you through these 8 project performance domains. As I said, the detailed one, each of them would require 2 hours of discussion, right? Minimum. That is what I'm saying. It's a minimum discussion what would be required. I'll be recording. This session would also get uploaded on the YouTube shortly, where it will help prospective PMP certificate aspirants to go through this video. And you can also go through the previous part of the video, which was on the 12 project management principles. Now, both these videos will be available on my YouTube channel. So there's a YouTube channel which I have, which is called Agile Coaching and Leadership Transformation. It's a free to subscribe YouTube channel which is there, and you can scan the QR code. You can see that QR code you can scan, and you can subscribe to that YouTube channel. There are now almost we are touching 170 videos there. So we would require definitely your motivation, your support to make it further grow. Okay, and it's a free to subscribe channel. So it has got videos on PMP certification. It has got videos on Agile. Feel free to use those resources, and most importantly, do share your feedback on those videos, because it really helps us to improve the content. So on that note, I think we are good to close this session for the day. And yeah, so first of all, thanks everyone, those of you who have joined. Thanks everyone who have come on the LinkedIn live also and Facebook live also for this session. And wishing you all the best in your PMP certification journey. And for existing PMPs, I hope this was a good refresher for you to understand how the role of project manager is getting evolved in our industry. So on that note, I say thanks to you, and enjoy the festival, and see you soon with another set of video around this. So thank you very much, and have a great evening or a day ahead. Thank you.